Go. Hey, everybody. Corey was just in the middle of something. I don't want to interrupt.
So X Factor ends up being like, I think they end up being like a government-sponsored thing or something like that. But it originally started with them pretending not to be mutants, so they could get racists to call them in to mutants, so they could get them and train them and like protect them, and also rob the racists of money. Because they'd be like, it's $42,000 for our service. And then they'd be like, now we're protecting these mutants. Yeah, it's weird territory. It's like progressive, I guess, for like 1986.
I feel like I hear that phrase a lot when people describe this to me.
Well, and that's the thing with like Marvel, especially at the time, like they're like a lot of progressive stuff, but it's progressive from the eye of a white guy in the 80s writing it, right? Like,
right.
It's like, yeah, I guess you're being... you don't know, so I guess this is like as progressive. It's pretty good for the time in that Marvel period.
Right. It's one of those things where it's like, it has to be, this is as good as we're going to get right now. And okay.
And to their credit, they are like, left-leaning people for sure. Like, I think it's the biggest thing, like with X-Men in general, is that like it purports to talk about some very serious subjects, and then like doesn't include the people who are naturally a part of those conversations, right? Like, it wasn't originally intended that X-Men would be parallel to the civil rights movement, but very quickly it was realized that, like, that is the case, right? Like,
right.
And in spite of that, there aren't that many black X-Men, are there?
No, there are not.
Yeah. Which, like, you know, they do address. Anyways, X Factor, pretty good. 1986. I've been enjoying it. It's also interesting, like, X-Men, well, like, most comics, especially in that era, like, people jump around a lot, like, writers and artists and stuff.
Yeah.
Chris Claremont wrote X-Men for 17 years straight.
Well, yeah, Chris Claremont is, like... If this is like what I remember from my my early high school days where I was actually reading comics, he's like sort of known as the X-Men guy, right? Like he's like the definitive like voice behind that.
And it's really interesting too, because like his writing style, watching it gel is interesting. He's like, he lays hooks years in advance, and then like it comes to fruition like, you know, years down the line, you're like, oh shit, Claremont set this up a long time ago. Huh. And that's pretty satisfying and cool. And like, people like, I don't know, like the movies did an injustice to Cyclops, who is like, I think a much more interesting character than he gets perpetuated as.
Well, this is the plight of every like lawful good character. I think it's like a common viewpoint or perspective that like the lawful good character is boring, and like the lawful good character, they're like an annoying little Boy Scout or whatever. Like, we want like the people who like follow their own rules. But in actuality, like following an external set of rules like a lawful good character does or whatever, like Cyclops does, makes for such better character development, because they have to struggle with that like internally while they're doing these things that they may not even agree with, right?
Which he does. Like,
yeah,
Cyclops
exactly.
Is like, that's the thing. Like, he's not just like lawful stupid. He's moral is the difference.
Yeah.
Like, he has morals, and he like has a really tough time with things. Like, one thing I really like about Cyclops is he is uptight and like stressed the fuck out all the time. Like, he is like having a really hard time dealing with things. And just like normal human shit too, which is another thing X-Men does really well. It deals with quiet human moments. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And the movies, you're right. I mean, they definitely give a very one-dimensional portrayal of that. I think just because that was like the popular view at the time, right? Like, I feel like audiences now are kind of coming around to this whole idea of what I just said, that like lawful good characters are actually like intriguing and like we should look at those more. But like back in like the early 2000s, it was very much the opposite. Like we want like the bad boy, we want Wolverine, like going out on his own or whatever. And so, yeah, like that character got just squashed into a very like singular, like use case, right?
Yeah, it ignores what X-Men talks about even in this era, which is like Cyclops has been traumatized from his entire life and has a hard time. He's got fucking brain damage and fucking like Professor X keeps wiping his goddamn memory. He didn't know he had brothers. Like
yeah.
And then like Wolverine too. Like Wolverine also got mischaracterized. Like the whole like love triangle between Jean Grey.
Yeah.
Like that's not really that big a deal in the comics. And to the point where it's like I think doing it kind of steps on the toes on what Wolverine is supposed to be, right? Like Wolverine's a dickhead, but he is internally honorable, and that's his whole thing. Like
sure.
He respects both Scott and Jean and the love that they have for each other, and likes them both.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You're right. The thing I always think about when I think of Wolverine versus Cyclops is from the 90s X-Men cartoon, where I don't even remember what Cyclops does to piss him off, but he literally rips the hood off of Cyclops' car, and he just like, he walks away and he's like, "Tell Summers I made him a convertible." So that's all I can ever fucking think of whenever I think of this relationship. It's just like he's like, he really respects Scott. It's like, does he?
I mean, the 90s cartoon is, like, honestly sort of a dishonest portrayal of, like, the characters in a lot of it.
No, that's actually, here's the thing, I love the 90s cartoon, and, like, at times, I think they actually do the comic justice, but yeah, as far as how they do a lot of the characters' portrayal, those are also very one-dimensional. Like, Kurt Wagner, like, Nightcrawler, like, he is just, he's so fucking cool, right? He's great. But like in the cartoon, it's just religion. And like, that is his only fucking thing, right?
Yeah, not talking about how he's like fucking charming as fuck and like everyone's friend. Like everyone wants to be Kurt's friend because he's a good friend.
Right. Anyways, we've gone on about X-Men for probably long enough here. Hi, everybody. Thank you for sticking through our X-Men rant. Give us your thoughts if you agree.
X-Talk.
X-Talk. Welcome to our new podcast, X-Talk. Sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather. I'm just getting over COVID. On that note, we're keeping tonight's stream relatively short. We're basically just kind of painting out what we're doing moving forward, both in and out of stream. I actually want to broach this topic before we actually get into the main thing for tonight, which is our stream schedule. So we are trying to bump up kind of the numbers, what we're doing. And we're looking at adding on an additional night on Tuesday nights. I would have done it starting this week with like another episode of Background Ballads or something to that effect. However, we are obviously not able to do that because I've been sick. I only was able to do stream as of like this morning. So probably next week you can expect one extra day from us. I'm thinking right now it'll probably be Tuesday nights because I just generally have those open, but that may be subject to change. We're tossing around the idea of possibly doing like a Saturday game stream as well, just because we're trying to get this remodel done relatively quickly in time so that we can just go straight into another playtest. We don't want to talk about this for like months and months and months and not do anything. Yeah. We don't know for sure if we can commit to that yet, but it may be something on the books.
At the very least, I know Taylor's talking about doing Background Ballads. We're in the talks of doing probably an art stream too, which we don't have a name for yet.
Hell yeah.
But we'll come up with one, and then Taylor will show me how to stream good so I don't fuck it up. That being said, like this session, I think is going to be a lot of Q&A for the community between us.
Yeah.
Us putting kind of a roadmap forward of where we're going very directly in the next couple weeks, what we're working on, how we want to see those things go, as well as December fast approaching, art. I will talk lightly about the morals of using AI-generated art in order to get some things done. Only because it's a fuckload of art.
Is this because? Do you mean it's wrong to make the robot work for you, or it's wrong to pass the robot's work off as your own?
It's wrong to supplant artists with a poorer quality product.
Well, not if you're the artist, right? You're the one who would normally be doing it. So
here's the thing: I think by and large, AI-generated art isn't going to be as big a problem. Like I've actually played around with Midjourney and DALL-E 2, and they're all right. The thing is, like, you can do the same thing with like half an hour and some photo reference in Photoshop.
Yeah.
Like pretty easily. They leave some weird artifacts that need to be cleaned up. They're good. Also, they're good for coming up with like atmosphere and aesthetic.
Yeah.
Not for finalized art. But they also are great tools for coming up with reference, right? Like I can use those to come up with a great reference and go from there. That being said, like we're gonna need some expansive landscapes just to throw on some pages just for these PDFs. They don't need to be finalized. They don't need to be final proof. They just need to be something people can look at. So.
Yep.
Yep. So yeah. That's kind of, I don't know. I got complicated feelings on the subject.
Honestly, I've never really given it too much of a second thought, but that's interesting to me. What was I going to say? Speaking of art, I probably should have told you already. I am using a little bit of my free time to work on a full world EBA map that'll have lots of stuff in it.
That's funny. I almost bought you, I forgot what it was on. There was like a class or something for making
for map making?
Yeah, I was like,
hell yeah.
I like this.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's kick-ass.
But I forgot what it was on, so I'll look into it. If you're interested in that, maybe I'll pick up the course for you.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what kind of tools they're using. Are they using like Incarnate or?
I'm not positive. Probably Photoshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
You can use my Photoshop.
I wouldn't be opposed to it. I mean, it's got to at least work better than Photopea. Like,
oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, Photopea is, I mean, no disrespect. I actually made this layout on Photopea. Like, it's great for what it is, but holy shit, that is a learning curve. Okay, cool. Well, then let's dive into what we're doing tonight. So, best I can tell, over the last few weeks in the remodel, we've redone combat, we've redone wounds, we've redone like death and dying, we've developed like some character conditions, and we've developed kind of a categorization system for those conditions.
Yeah.
Which frankly is a huge achievement over the last couple of weeks, which is great. Yeah. I think before stream started, we were talking the two major things we have left are character creation, and we have the caravan system, and what this means for the caravan system.
One step further too. We equipment.
Oh yeah, we do need to get equipment a little bit better situated down. Okay, cool. So that's like 3 then.
Let's real quick. Let's look at a couple things. Let's tie some loose ends on some things that we just reworked. One thing that I want to look at is can we go to the combat rework real quick?
We certainly can.
Combat everywhere. Start of conflict. Nope, that's movement. Group initiative per round based on factions. Start at the beginning of conflict. Each member rolls a traversal and approach. So some of these totals, we have to get rid of the sum of these totals.
Oh, right. Didn't we already?
Where did we write
didn't
it? No. So what we ended up doing was movement starts with every member of your active faction adding 5 X's to a pool, which can be divided among the players. But we still don't have initiative between factions figured out. So
yeah, for some reason I thought I remembered you addressing this and coming up with a really simple.
I mean, I think it's either just a straight up shootout, which would probably be the way to do it between each faction. With and this would probably be most similar to L5R's vigilance system, right? Like, whoever you roll, what is it? You roll. Do you just use your flat vigilance, or no? You roll tactics, and then you count those hits, right?
Yeah, so in L5R, it works where if the party is surprised, then they're using vigilance, and if they're not surprised, they're using their focus. And then you roll a tactics check, and then you add the total number of successes to that, to either focus or vigilance. Yeah. I think the really simple answer here, because I don't really want to get into the specifics of how to calculate a vigilance score or whatever for like all of our vault peddlers. Just saying everybody rolls traversal plus approach, counting their successes. The sum total of these successes counts as the initiative number of the faction.
So my only possible contention with that is because we're using not asynchronous. What's the word I'm looking for? Things that aren't balanced. Asymmetrical NPC versus player stat blocks. The more players you have, the more chances you are at a hit. NPCs, if we're just rolling the NPC as a group, are we rolling NPC stat blocks as a group, or what are we doing there?
Well, I that was my assumption because it's a faction turn, right? So it's
so we're
it would
just
be
rolling.
Yeah, all the NPCs and all of the. I mean, it would just be a lot of dice to roll, which would suck.
Yeah. If there was a way, I wonder if we could just do it as a straight shootout.
What if it's what if it's something as simple as like each side picks a player and they do a shootout using traversal and approach?
Traversal or approach, or we take skill out of it. We just do. Okay, I like that. By the way, so we could do that, or we could take. You just do a flat shootout on like. Yeah, no, let's do traversal and approach, and then let's handle it this way. Because we have things split up into half or best rolls, where if you guys are on even territory, you both roll half rolls. If one of you has an advantageous situation over the other faction, they roll half rolls, you roll best rolls. You see what I mean? Basically like advantage or disadvantage.
Okay.
So like, because best rolls are only 1s and 2s counts as hits, right?
Yes, that would be correct.
And half rolls or anything over 50% count as a hit, and then you can crit with 1. So if we do it this way, if your faction is in a disadvantageous position, then you roll best rolls on this shootout. If your faction is in an advantageous situation, you roll half rolls, and just stock will do half rolls.
So hang on, is best roll 1 and 2? I thought that's just a regular. Oh, you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So to be clear, best rolls are 1 and 2. I thought that was just a regular roll.
So I mean, how we have it, how I laid it out was there are 2 levels, basically. Right. Which is half rolls, which is anything over 50% counts as a success. And and that's if you're not doing anything particularly difficult, like if you're just picking a regular lock.
And to be clear, because we're looking at 1s and 2s as successes normally, that would be rolling any under half, right?
Yeah, under half. Exactly. Yeah, we want low rolls are high rolls for us.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, let's stop. Let's do. We pick one character. One player versus one NPC, basically in each faction.
Okay. Each faction picks one player for an initiative shootout. The selected players. And what do they roll? It's traversal plus approach?
Traversal plus approach. Whatever approach you're in for that.
And for the players who are not, like, let's say you and I selected Adam to do the shootout, and he chooses to do it in obfuscation. Does that mean we're locked into obfuscation as well?
No, but you will be stuck like we talked about before. Whatever approach you pick is the approach you're in until your faction's turn comes up again.
Okay. Chosen approach is the one the player must use until their next faction turn. Winners faction goes first.
The stock, this is just half roll versus half roll. If you're in an advantageous position, it changes. If the other faction is in, I'm trying to say this in a weird way.
Yeah. This is like half the challenge of making a fucking game.
Yeah. Advantageous.
So
actually, I don't even think we need advantageous situation. We just do stock, regular roll, disadvantageous, best roll. Because the stock and advantageous won't change, right? It's just if you're in a poor position, you will have to roll the 1s or 2s as success.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So, sorry, going back to my initial question, though, here. Let me get this pulled back up here. Okay, so marginal in half. So, with a difficult task, only the last 2 digits on a polyhedral dice count as a success. So that is a difficult one. And, okay, and so on a marginal or half roll, any value under half on your polyhedral die is a success. So literally, like, wait, so that means if I'm rolling a d12, like a 6 and under is a success?
Correct.
And that's
Correct.
a regular roll?
Regular die roll. So how this works, and we can go over this again, actually, probably good time to now because we're doing the Q&A thing.
Yeah.
Let's see, what's that under? Live notes?
Yeah, it's under live notes. It's a ways under there.
So basically, it's this. Yes. When a stock roll, anything that you have a 50% chance of succeeding at any one task. If you are doing something that is difficult, you have it goes to 1s and 2s. How I equated this is if you are picking a regular lock, it is that 50% chance. If you are picking a maglock, that is a 1 or 2.
Okay.
Where this comes in, interestingly, is when you have outside pressures put on you, then you have to get more successes and more successes. Also, because 1s explode, that means that you still want lower die, even on those half rolls.
Right.
Because you have a higher chance of critting on those.
Okay. I did not realize that was our standard roll mechanic. I actually thought that best rolls were our standard roll mechanic. I just want to go. I want to go on record then as saying I'm worried that this system is going to be way too easy.
So the idea here is that we don't have as much stick for regular shit. Because what we ran into was like when the people were trying to jump into a cart, right? Like, that's not a particular difficult thing, but it ended up being like an impossible task.
Right.
So the idea here is to speed up those things, make those very cool, easy activities very easy to do.
Yeah.
But also, we can build up the difficulty very quickly.
Okay.
So, you make it 1s and 2s to hit if you have, like, a difficult thing that you're doing because you're breaking into a vault that is full of tech from the world once gone.
Okay.
And beyond that, our game is about outside pressures. So I think the idea here, and what I'm going to try to prove in my playtest, is that outside pressures are the difficulty value here.
So I'm down with outside pressures being the difficulty measure here, but you did say that without outside pressures, you literally just need one success to do it, right?
That's basically the idea, is that like very easy shit, like shit that's like inconsequential shouldn't slow down gameplay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Then yeah, we will go with that. That works. And yeah, in that case, you are correct. We will not need to distinguish advantageous situations.
The beauty here too is if we do find it too easy, we can switch how we do these things, and like
it's an easily solvable problem.
System. Yeah, it's a malleable system.
Okay, cool. Then yeah, I like that for initiative as long as you're cool with what we've got here.
Yeah. Does it stick or do you re-roll at the... I think it sticks. Sticks because the less amount of recurring die rolls we have to do, the easier.
Yeah.
So let's look at... let's look at the idea we had for the formula for NPC stat blocks really quickly.
Yeah. So determining NPC roles. So NPCs are categorized as follows. 1 stars, low-level minions, or mooks. These NPCs only have 1 node, read, not wound, and they are dead. 2-star, mid-level subbosses or enforcers. These NPCs have 1 full wound, and 3 stars. High-level BBEG or other major adversary. These NPCs have 3 full wounds like a player does. The GMs can make custom NPCs with larger star rating correlating to additional wounds they can take. Each NPC has boxes for each of the 5 approaches with an assigned polyhedral die for skills. They use a simplified stat block consisting of physical skills, social skills, research skills. Each of these skills has a number attached to it, indicating the number of polyhedral die each approach would use in an encounter.
Never mind.
What's up?
That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's simple and straightforward. Very much a ripoff of L5R's.
Is it?
Oh yeah, this is how L5R does their stat blocks. They have it where instead of physical, social, and research, it's artisan, martial, scholar, social, and trade, I think is what it is.
Our smallers eat a dick, L5R.
Yeah, eat a dick, L5R. Fuck you, Fantasy Flight Games.
One thing I would do here is high-level BBEG or other adversary. These NPCs can have 3+ full wounds. That way leave the door open for if you really want a sponge.
Yeah, I think that is a little bit more efficient. And then I'm just gonna remove that.
Now, interestingly enough, folks, the reason why it doesn't really matter if you have an NPC with that many wounds is because combat resolution in this game doesn't resolve just by combat. It resolves by the narrative consequences of combat. So how we're determining this works is you set up a goal for each combat. How I envision the cat sheet, how I've kind of written it out, is that you could have an area and you could have a bunch of goals in there. depending on what's in the area that you can pull from, and also a list of consequences. Basically, if you don't achieve this goal, this will happen. Now, obviously, the world is a sliding scale of gray, not black and white, so the effects that your players take in the game will have an effect on how that, shakes out in the end. But the idea here is that combat has a finishing line. It's not just D&D 3-hour combat.
Yeah. Yeah, very much. And actually, should we go back to the initiative section we were just on, and should we put that in? Because that's not in there as of right now.
Actually, yeah, we should, because we should get into the habit of rewriting sections.
Yeah.
Rewriting sections. Because everyone watching, if you're going to write a tabletop game, always make sure to repeat yourself over and over and over and over, because even you, the creators of the game, will forget those rules.
You absolutely will. Okay. So before combat begins, the archivist will determine the goal of the encounter and assign a select number of rounds after which the encounter will end.
Yep. With consequences both narrative and stated taking place.
Okay. Say that again.
With consequences both narrative and initially stated taking place.
So it's both narrative and initially stated taking place at that time, depending on outcome of the encounter. I feel like I'm going to need to reword that, but it works. Do we need to put anything else in here?
I don't think so. I think that's good.
Yeah, that's kind of it. Okay, cool.
So now those are buttoned up. We've got that shit buttoned up.
Yeah, that was the only thing I think that we didn't have.
Okay, cool.
Cool.
So conditions, I do just want to take a quick look at, just to make sure we're looking at them. So wound system stock, each character has 4 wounds, the last wound being, of course, death. Each wound consists of 3 nodes, which are affected by taking...
Or unconsciousness.
Death or unconsciousness, right. Narrative distinction, you can make that distinction as you go through and, harm somebody. This is because, I think we've all encountered that situation. I want to make him unconscious. Well, you killed him.
Yeah.
Why? I feel like I can control that a bit.
Yeah, I feel like that's dumb, given that I've just been, bludgeoning him on the head. The point stated was to knock him out, so... Yeah, you should have that ability.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, each wound consists of 3 nodes, which are affected by taking any form of damage. Wound effects are cumulative. At 4 wounds, you perish. These can all be changed through the use of gear, interaction with caravans, or the utilization of your team's provinces. So this is where we're going to get into team-based actions being what distinguish provinces.
Yeah.
And money-based actions being what distinguish provinces, right?
Yeah.
It's how you interact with your resources and how you interact with your community that define provinces.
And this is also going to be one of the biggest things that when we reapproach caravans, provinces are no longer going to be an isolated individual thing. Provinces are going to be a thing within the caravan system. And that is actually probably going to be the biggest rework of the caravan system that we've got to do.
A lot of it is we're going to shrink caravans, right? It's not just a bunch of nameless people anymore. It's your treasure hunting crew. It's a lot more Atlantis now. Yeah.
It's definitely going to be, whereas we had 30 jobs before, we now are going to have just those province classes, and they're going to have a bunch of stuff that comes with them. Yeah.
So, applying wounds. Any of the conditions listed in the conditions section with a wound tag can be applied to characters or NPCs who suffer wounds. The severity of these increase by the level of wound that they have. Wound 1, Wound condition applies as written in the condition section. Wound 2. Wound condition applies upgrading with severity by 1 or by relevant polyhedral die. Wound 3. Wound condition applies increasing severity by 2 or by relevant polyhedral die type. And then wound 4. Death or unconsciousness. One thing we both...
Sorry, yeah, didn't we actually say that you can have 3 level 1 wounds and then you die?
So this is actually what I was just about to talk about. This is something we had talked about, and we were both at... I think we decided for the playtest, that's how we wanted to go through with it.
Okay.
Is that you can either upgrade wounds on players, or you can apply smaller wounds to them. I kind of like this as a modular thing.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So then we need to change the wording in this, because this makes it very linear, like...
applying wounds. As the condition listed in the sections, wound tag can be applied to characters who suffer wounds. The severity of these can increase by the level of the wound they have, or you may apply additional lower level wounds. But again, wound levels are cumulative. So once you reach 4...
additional low level wounds. Okay.
And then I think, can we actually repeat right here at the end of that? But again, at the very end of apply additional low-level wounds. But again, wounds are cumulative. Once you reach 4 wounds, whether it be from one or multiple sources, unconsciousness or death is deemed constant.
Just from wounds. Okay. Okay.
Cool. And then we have our actual conditions, which I'm still not married on having on one sheet, but we will see. And I only bring this up because we are going to be making weapons and armor and items, which are also going to have tags.
Yep.
And I could see some of those tags applying to terrain as well.
Yeah, I can see that for sure.
Explosive, first off, really cool terrain.
Yeah,
but
no.
I really dig this though. Like,
here's the thing. I think that categorization aside, I think we have a solid set of conditions that apply to our game. We may need to reorganize them, and that's fine. Like, you know, not going to be fun, obviously, when and if we have to do it, but I'm happy with what we have at the very least.
I do too. I think this is, I don't know, this all feels much smoother than what we had before. So
very much, yeah.
So let's chat. Let's what's that podcast with Adam Scott? Is it You Talking You Two to Me? And then he's got one about he's got one about fish too. That's ridiculously named as well.
Tight. Cool.
But so let's take a peek here. Let's part the kimono a bit. That's all we do, actually.
Literally, this entire show is parting the kimono. Okay, so what are we looking at?
So we need to talk about how we're going to approach 3 things, I think. How we're going to approach equipment, which we've kind of marginally touched on. How we're going to approach caravan, which we've kind of marginally touched on. And how we're going to approach character creation, which we have not touched on.
Not at all.
Not at all. So where do you want to start?
You know, my gut always tells me to start with what I think is the biggest threat. And, like, I would have told you before that would have been the caravan. But in all honesty, I kind of see a light at the end of the tunnel with how we're going to do that. I think we actually should dive into character creation.
Yeah.
Because I don't actually know what we're going to do as far as finding like a narrative solve for this, because like just to kind of harken back here, the most visceral reaction we got to character creation from our last playtest was from Elstergoon. And
yeah,
it was
upset with us.
He was upset, and frankly, rightfully so.
Yeah.
But he had this line. It was a very long rant. He had this line that was like, you go from the first two sections, which are totally narrative and like they're compelling and they're interesting, and then like you go into this weird point buy system for the rest of it, and like it just doesn't gel with itself. And as much as I want, like I want us to have an answer here that really does file into that narrative, because I think actually that did work really well. All of the character quirks that like our players did pull from were from those two sections where like they had these prompts. I just don't know how to do that for a complete character sheet without basically just making L5R's game of 20 questions.
So I think that I mean, first off, I think what's going to behoove us is we should sit down with the character sheet and X out, like literally draw X's over what we're going to be removing.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Let's pull it up here. Hang on one sec.
But I also want to take a look at something we talked about last session, which was debilities. And I see this as our path forward, in that we are going to have a sliding scale of permanent negatives that your character can take on, which is going to balance against character progression. I honestly think that we don't do a very robust character creation, and we start pretty on a low level as far as character creation goes, and let progress go on and try to balance those negative aspects against the positive growth, I guess. One thing I really like about L5R is how it forces you into lateral growth. And maybe this is just your GMing style, but I constantly find myself in situations where I'm like, well, fuck, I guess I got to invest in all this fucking speech crap.
Well, no, it's because as a GM, I'm fucking traumatized from Ruma, because you guys got so powerful, so fucking fast. And like, when I went into L5R, I was like, I can't fucking let this happen again. I've put too much work into, like, I spent like 3 months just comprehensively prepping for this fucking game. And I was like, if I get to a point where 6 months from now, I have to like just quit the fucking game because I literally can't even hurt all of you, then like, I'm not gonna, I'm gonna scream or whatever. And so like, yeah, no, this whole time I've been trying to find ways to force all of you into like little corners for a little while. It's like, have you seen that video of the guy at like the vet's office who like opens up the cabinet with all the kittens in it, and he's like constantly just pushing them back and like trying to close the cabinet? That's been my GM style for the last like year.
Well, let me ask you something on a personal, like, we're both running games together. So me and Taylor both came from PBTA games.
Yeah.
I mean, PBTA for our last games, and like, looking at things now, I'm like, I have found that like my niche, what I like is trad games. Like, I like traditional games more than I like PBTA rules light. I like it more than I like OSR. Like, I just find like
what is OSR, by the way?
OSR is like B/X Dungeons and Dragons, so it's like based off of the original Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
In that, like, there's a lot more. It is also sort of rules light in that there's a lot of like GM discretion on how things are solved, and it's a lot more flavor. But it's also a lot deadlier. It's easier to die. So that's sort of what OSR is like a very loose framework, but it means old school rules.
Gotcha.
And as much as like I like some of the OSR aesthetic, like Mork Borg, which again is just dripping with aesthetic. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't necessarily work for me. I like track games. That being said, we both moved from PBTA games and PBTA campaigns, which we both set to be too long. And we both encountered this problem that Taylor talked about, where like stakes were lowered very easily, and like not just like because of the nature of PBTA and emotional cues being like a huge part of the game, like not just like the stakes of death and dying, but emotional stakes were negated as well. Did you find that switching? Because I had that same feeling going into Cyberpunk. Did you find, or have you found that you have gone too far in the other direction? Because I have.
Well, yeah, I can see it with yours, because like you've talked before in like our private game about how you initially were very heavy on the stick and not enough carrot and all that. So for me it was a little bit different. Because my biggest thing with PBTA was just how fast you progressed. Like, I don't actually mind the mechanics. I think that like the way that the actual rolling works is okay, fine, whatever. Like, I actually even enjoyed that like as a GM, you mostly didn't have to take rolls. There were definitely times when I kind of wished that I could have, but as a general rule, you've got so much going on behind the screen. I actually kind of enjoyed having the freedom to not have to worry about like, oh, hang on guys, let me count my dice. What I wish that I would have done and what I would have caught earlier on was basically just saying like, hey guys, I know that the official rules in PBTA say you can only upgrade like, you know, you get like a point or whatever every time you fail a roll, and like, and you know, so many of these points you can upgrade or whatever. I kind of wish I had said, hey, let's say fuck all that, and like we're gonna just do like milestone upgrading, and like maybe, I don't know, we'll do it so that like you can still keep track of these points or whatever, but maybe like when you get so many points, you just get like a bump on like a single roll, right? Yeah. And it would have been something that like the table would have had to have been cool with. Sure. And at the time, I didn't know enough about PBTA to know that that was even going to be an issue. No, to go back to your question though, that wasn't what bothered me when I went to L5R. L5R has a pretty linear progression. Like you have a school, and you can definitely take other abilities that aren't in that school ranking, and you can spend all your time doing that. But eventually you gather up enough XP that you level up to the next school ranking, and so on and so forth. And there's only 6 total levels, right? So I started counting it up is what happened. I started counting it up and being like, okay, well, you need this many to progress to the next level, and this is how many you get theoretically per session. So like this is kind of plotting it out. This is roughly how many sessions, right, I would have before one or maybe all of you get to level 6. And I thought, well, that's way too fucking few, right? And so at that point I was like, but if I start making it so that they have to start looking at things outside of their school, then that's gonna kneecap that progression pretty quickly. It's gonna kneecap it pretty heavily. And so yeah, that's why after a year, you guys have just now started getting to like level 3. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
I sort of, yeah. I mean, like,
yeah.
Yeah. I was just curious how it affected your game master.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it like PBTA traumatized me in that sense. Because yeah, I mean, you kind of said it already. Like, we both went into those campaigns really wanting to do something more long term. Like, I remember us talking about like, oh yeah, there's going to be like, when we do a season 2 of both of these games or whatever, that was a constant conversation we had at the beginning. And like, there was no fucking way. The only way was to start with new characters, right? Yeah. And I don't know, there's nothing wrong with that, but at a certain point you get attached, and you don't want to do that. So, I was determined that would not be the case, when I started L5R. Like it had to not be that way.
Yeah, for me, it's like Cyberpunk it started off very, I mean, like, it's been breakneck the whole time.
Yeah, it has.
Well, and like, I think we were both forcing players to make decisions on improvement based on based on necessity. And I think like, go on.
Well, and that aspect of GMing is really ingrained into you in PBTA games. Like, with the whole, like, take, like, a soft move on, like, a partial success or whatever. Like, you're constantly in those games thinking about what's the next thing that happens in the story. So, honestly, like, yeah, Cyberpunk has been breakneck for sure. But I totally get where that comes from a GM perspective. Like, constantly looking for, like, well, what's the consequence of this? How does that affect the game? Like, what's that mean moving forward? Like, it makes perfect sense to me.
Well, yeah, it taught motivation.
Yeah.
And I think that's, like, been pretty integral to, like, larger scale world building. But, like, it made me start very breakneck with you guys, and then, like, about partway through what I would call, like, the first act, or maybe towards the end of the first act, I started to realize that, like, shit, this is like getting... I think I started making things not fun, not on purpose, just because, like, no one had a chance to rest. And like I said, there was a lot of stick and not a lot of carrot. And, like, lately I've been looking for ways to, like, reward outside of the standards of what would necessarily make sense in, like, the cyberpunk world, by just leaving shit around for you guys, which actually I think fills out the world even more.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's interesting being this deep. I know we're just kind of waxing nostalgic about our own games right now, but it's interesting to be like at this point in a campaign because like we are deep in meat territory.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, like shit's happening.
Like I don't know. For me, because I mean, you've played in all of my games, so like you know that like for a long time, my whole carrot system was literally just like, hey, you did something cool, like roll a random dice and like here's like a fun item or whatever.
Yeah.
And I knew that like when we switched to L5R, I didn't really want to do something like that. It just didn't feel right for the game. So like what I've tried to do as far as like putting carrot in my games is like finding narrative carrot, like meeting a really nice, like, you know, roadside storehouse lady that like is kind to you, amongst all of the awfulness, or like, giving you clues as to like important people from your backstory that you've been trying to track down, like just casually name dropping one of them in conversation. That stuff for me has kind of taken the form of carrot. And I don't know if every table would respond to that as well as you guys have. I feel like maybe I'm a little bit spoiled, in that regard, but like it seems to have worked really well, for our table, at least.
I feel like I've made NPCs too aggro at a certain point where it's like nobody fucking trusts them anymore, and I'm like, damn.
Yeah.
Like, not everyone's out to fuck you guys over, sorry.
Well, look, man, speaking of that roadside storehouse manager, do you guys remember how many fucking checks you made on that lady's house? Like,
Fair. My character would have done that anyways. He's paranoid as hell.
He would have, but you weren't the only one. Literally everyone did multiple checks. And like, I remember I actually had to go back to my soundtrack tool of tricks and like switch it over to a happy song. Yeah, and be like, no, this is like a really nice lady. She's there to help you.
Yeah, it's funny, like, and we'll start talking about our game again here in a minute. I just like,
no,
it's funny seeing the progress of like these campaigns because like I kind of know the direction I want next campaign to go, and it's going to be a lot more fun. I think is my idea.
Yeah,
like
hell yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah. Oh, by the way, shout out to Podcast of the Five Rings for expressing interest in watching the L5R campaign. You guys are like the fucking coolest. I watched your podcast from like day one of my own campaign, and like I knew how to play the game before I watched the podcast, but like you guys were super helpful in explaining like certain concepts. So like hats off to you. Glad you like Fractured Fortunes. Really hope to hear it in like the new season whenever you guys get down to recording.
Hell
yeah, no, super cool. Okay, cool. Let's
So yeah, let's open up this character sheet and cross out what we need to cross out. And
yeah. So I'm looking at it right now. It should show up for you on stream, or you can just pull it up on Drive. So first off, health, armor, and movement nodes are gone.
Yeah, we can just cross that off.
Yeah. Traits are gone. What were masteries?
Spelled parlay. Did I spell parlay? No, I spelled it right.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Masteries out.
What was masteries?
It was like at the end of traits, you get like feats, basically.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. And then reliquary is like your special, like
that's just items.
Yeah.
So those can stay.
Expanded masteries, I'm guessing, needs to go.
Yeah.
I think debts and favors actually should stay. Although we may want to make it into a more than just like a flat box. Like we might want to actually make it like a little table with like name of the person, like amount, or I don't know what to do with it.
So that's the difficult part when you get into like creating this physical set piece here is the box leaves a open area for players to fill in what the actual debt is.
Yeah.
If we start defining the constraints, then we need to create the framework for those constraints to fit in, right? Like,
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, like look at armors and armaments.
Yeah. Okay, got it.
So that has constraints because we know the constraints of how weapons work.
Yeah.
But if I were to put like a magic item in there, it wouldn't necessarily work, right? Like,
sure.
Yeah. So like, I mean, this is where we get into the puzzle aspect of building fucking character sheets and stuff. By the way, folks, building character sheets in GM tools is a fucking puzzle, and it's real fun.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, we say cross out HP, like we do still have a track. We will have a tracker. We'll have a wounds section specifically where we can write wounds and conditions, abilities, that kind of thing. I think this is going to open up the character sheet quite a bit.
Okay.
I'll be able to push those borders, I think. Keep trying to move the fucking scroll bar on the side.
What do you, what do you, what would you think about, like, maybe, I don't know, I'm trying to think of how to phrase this, but, like, you have, so it's what, 9, it'd be 12 nodes, right? Because you have 3 at a wound, you have 4 total wounds, so it's a total of 12.
Each one you would write wound 1, wound 2, wound 3, and death or unconsciousness next to, is how I would do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. Tight.
And then underneath, I would have a section for conditions.
Yeah, that was going to be the next thing.
And then probably on the back, or actually probably not on the back, probably... well, no, because if we're doing debilities as just bringing down... if we do debilities with like narrative consequence, they'll have to go on the first page. If we do debilities with just bringing something down, like this is a permanent decrease to yada yada, it can be on the back sheet, because once you have it filled out, you'll be removing that from the front, that mark from your front sheet.
Yeah. So
that's a question of how we want to instill those, honestly.
Okay.
Obviously, we can keep... traits being gone is going to be huge.
Yeah, traits being gone is going to leave a giant hole, which honestly is great. The more awesome. Yeah, the more space we have on the front page, the better. Let's see here.
Yeah, honestly, this is going to be much easier. So if those are the things we need to take into account, then what we need to take into account for our character creation is a way to level up. So we're starting at a level 1 character, basically. I imagine, since everything's going to start at 1 in all ranks or skills.
Yep.
And a D12 in all approaches.
Yeah, correct.
What we want to do is have a way to generate, let's call it, probably 4 upgrades on approaches. So if somebody wanted to focus, they could get to D10, D8, D10, D8, D6. If somebody wanted to focus, they could have a D4 in one skill. So 3 or 4 approach upgrades.
Okay.
And then we want how many skills do we have? You scroll down just a mic.
Oh, yeah.
Didn't scroll down.
We have 9 skills.
Okay, so these are going to be your die pool. So
right.
On average, how many dice do we want people to be rolling for a first level character?
If we're sticking with your rolling system, now that I know I understand the resolution a little bit better, I'm actually going to say smaller die pool. Like,
okay, yeah, I'm fine with that.
If most of the time it's half, then yeah, smaller die pool. So I'm going to say like on average 2, but like 1 is acceptable.
So then I think we need how we need to do this then on a level 1 character is we need to have an opportunity for 3 upgrades on approaches and 5 upgrades on skills.
Okay. Cool.
Meaning that if you were to spread it out, you would have 2.5 on all your skills, and then a D10 on 3 D12s on the other 2. Okay. It gives you a little bit of a chance to specialize. Guys, you're not seeing this right now, but normally when we're not on stream, Taylor converts this all to Comic Sans. And that's the only way he writes.
It's true. I refuse to do anything else. I'm a goddamn professional.
It's not my fault it's the real font.
It's not my fault. It's what all of the real writers use. Okay, so 3 improvements on approaches, 5 improvements on skills.
Yep.
Okay. So one thing I'm seeing, one opportunity I'm seeing then, if that's all we're looking at, we have the species section, we have the background section. I wonder, like you could at the very least, right, take the questions we have already and put like whereas you only have like 1 improvement we currently have on there, we could have 2, right? Yeah. And that in and of itself would get us we would just need 4 more improvements after that.
So let's not finish this right now, because let's look at what else we want the character generation to do.
Okay.
We want to generate probably a standard set of items, right? As well as probably 1 relic item.
Yeah.
So when I say a standard set of items, I mean like an arm, an armor, and then like a basic piece of equipment.
So a basic piece of equipment, is that not the caravan resources?
Oh yeah, we do have basic pieces of equipment covered there, huh? Yeah. So
yeah,
we can take that. We can take that right out.
I was about to say we actually don't really need that.
Then I wonder if we even, because we can just do base armor. Armor doesn't do anything unless you get an armor that lets you like add something to a die pool or prevent you from taking a damage. It's just an item like that. Right. You can just attack you can flavor what you have for a weapon with whatever, unless you have an armament that is a relic item. So let's say 1 relic item.
Okay.
Straight up. It can either be armor, or just a like cool item.
Okay.
And we also want the character generation, and this will get into provinces here, affect how you interact with your caravan, or how you interact interpersonally with your group, and how you interact with money, right? That's like how we want provinces to work.
It is. To be clear, though, provinces are being moved to caravan, right? So is that even in character creation?
So, I mean, this is where we get into a tougher conversation, because if we're talking about provinces interacting, like, we have to make the decision whether we want you to be able to get better at doing what your province does within the group, and being able to specialize, which we shouldn't disregard. There are people who like specializations and want to do that. Or whether or not we want provinces to only do this stock set of things, and that's it. Like, you can change your job and it will only do those stock set of things. You can favor doing this one if you'd like, but it's not going to progress.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. I don't have a clear answer for you there, is my response.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I do either. I definitely like the idea of your province having some kind of progression option. I also really like the idea, and Elstragoon brought this up a couple of streams back, where he suggested that provinces were more like a rotating wheel of chores, where 1 week you can be wearing the pharaoh role, the pharaoh province, and then the other week maybe you're wearing the reckoner, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously some people are going to be more naturally inclined to some other thing, based off of, because we still have these skill sets. But maybe we can think laterally here, and maybe the progression can be, like, oriented towards how long you're, like, staying within that paradigm, and oriented
Okay.
towards working with the people that you're working with, right? Like the more that we both work as like a reckoner and a spoiler together, the more that these jobs grow to intertwine with each other in interesting ways. And that, like, when we reset that, maybe we reset the paradigm, which I know this is a broader conversation about evolution of skills, but maybe it is like a smaller set of skills initially for each province, and as you work together with somebody and you're like maintaining these paradigms, they grow together.
So I think that that's a cool idea. The only thing I would add is that as you sink more into a particular role or province, I like the idea that there's a bearable consequence, a bearable negative consequence of doing that as well. Because I think that if we're going to add this idea of a rotating, it either needs to be that we don't have a rotating option, or we encourage the rotation.
So I think it's kind of natural. No, I love you. I think it's naturally baked in, honestly.
Yeah.
When you think about it, if we have these paradigms set up, and maybe that's what we can call them, like when you have this configuration working together, it's one paradigm, and like when this
That's a neat
configuration,
idea.
yeah. But the natural consequence, Taylor, is I think this. When you have only 3 people on a team and you're building up this paradigm, you can do very cool things, but you're letting other things fall to the wayside, right? Like, I don't have a spoiler on the team because we've been building this Reckoner Croaker, give me another province.
Pharaoh.
Reckoner Croaker Pharaoh paradigm.
Right.
So we've been building this up, and we've been letting fall to the wayside the responsibilities of the spoiler, which it doesn't have to be the negative stick. It's just you're not increasing it. So you're not getting those benefits as you're increasing these benefits.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm down with that. Okay.
So I guess we can stick it out of it, then we won't include this in character creation.
No, that definitely is going to go under Caravan for sure. I do have the general idea linked under it, and we can revisit it when we actually do a full stream on Caravan.
Which I'm actually very excited for now. That paradigm idea is neat.
Yeah, the paradigm idea is very cool. I like the idea of creating custom bonuses that like different paradigms get. Do feel like we're going to have... My only worry is like, how many different combinations are you going to possibly have? I feel like it's going to be a lot.
Yeah, it is. Here's the thing, though, and this is something that we have discovered, is that when we come up with these neat ideas and then we like shoehorn them with very like don't do them, and we're like, well, this can cover everything. Ideas on top.
Yeah,
of
they
that.
don't work.
Yeah. So
yeah,
like,
no, they're
if,
garbage.
If we do it, we got to do it for real.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, like, here's the thing. Let's keep it light initially for like the first playtest in the PDF, whatever, and then let's build up on it as we go.
Okay. It's let's see, combinations of 3. 1, 2, 3.
I mean, it's combinations. We'll have to think about. Let's not talk about it now because we're also going to have to think about like party limits, right? I don't get people who play with 7 people in their fucking party anyways, though.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's even an option with the provinces we currently have, because we only currently have 5 playable provinces.
I mean, you could have 2 reckoners, like, you could have...
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck,
Well,
if there's repetition, that's a whole nother...
We'll have to think of, like, this is stuff we're going to have to think about in the episode that is following this one, because we're not doing it right now.
Yeah, definitely not doing it now. Okay, cool. All right. Anything else that we need for character creation as far as, like, We have 3 improvements on approaches, 5 improvements on skills, 1 reliquary item. That's it?
I think that's it, right? Like, maybe like how much petty coin you start with as a personal, like in your wallet.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Unless we wanted to bring that into Caravan as well. Like, what does your coffers look like? Maybe it has to be that, right? Because we talked about how you have to talk your way into getting.
Well, then here's what we can say: the size of the wallet that you would have.
Yeah, right? Baby, I like the way you're thinking. Okay, that's some lateral thought.
Because even if we have a lot in our coffers, how much you are personally able to carry, I definitely see that being kind of affected by your background.
Yeah, size of your wallet for sure.
Cool. So wallet size, and then I think that is it.
Yeah, I can't wait till we're sponsored by Capital One and they give us the tagline, "What's in your wallet?"
I went to a totally different thing where I was talking about like Bigeron's wallet, fucking Giant's wallet. How many rupees can you hold?
Yeah. Okay. So like, I don't know. This shouldn't be too bad. Those are the things we need to account for.
Yeah. No, I think that's good. Okay, cool. Do we want to call it there then?
How the hell else can I miss him?
I haven't seen him around. He's breaking my heart.
Ball as well.
Wait, is he in the chat?
No, I'm just sending him a chat right
now. Oh, you're just sending him a chat. Okay, yeah, got you. All right, cool. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about then today?
No, I think that's probably good.
All right, cool. Is there someone we can raid? Or do we have anybody watching?
We have 4 people watching.
All right, sick. Yeah, is there someone we can raid?
I don't know. All
right. Well, tell you what, folks, feel free to hang on, keep watching, and if there's someone to raid, we will send you over to them. Bye-bye.
Bye.